Good morning. In Romans chapter 1, the Apostle Paul equates a spiritual gift with strengthening one another by sharing each other's faith. And when we have the opportunity to go out and do what God asks us to do, and that's to plant the seed of the gospel in people's hearts and minds, it strengthens our faith. And as we share experiences in doing so with one another, and that's what we're about to do. Greatly strengthened by the Mexico City groups yesterday, their report. Strengthened again today by what we hear today, and we'll hear eventually, I'm sure, from Brian and others that the trips that they've taken during this last couple of weeks. This morning we're going to start with a group that went up to Fall River, Massachusetts. Then we're going to go to the group in Iowa, Ogden, Iowa. And then we'll listen to the group from Lubbock, Texas. And then last but not least, the group that went to Waco, Texas. So we'll start with the group, first of all, that went to Massachusetts. John Adams.
Get a little timer going here so I don't go over. That's good. There you go. As you can see, we had a little snow, but that's not where the story starts. We took off on daylight savings time, so that means we jumped ahead an hour that morning. So when we were at the airport, we had one member not there. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was someone, and so we had a little excitement, made it right at the last minute, so that was just a great start because, you know, who wants to start off boring? You know, we wanted to start off with excitement, and we did, and we made it. Got on the plane, had no problems. Flight was good. Got there, and we had a wonderful young lady pick us up and drive us from Boston to Fall River, Massachusetts. And she had a great accent, so we enjoyed just listening to her talk about the cars and where she was going to park it, and you know, getting some water down at the corner. And it was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed visiting with Lori. And when we got there, we spent the first day getting ready for the presentation campaign that Chris was going to be putting on. Chris Winford was the lead on this campaign. And so we did a lot of scissor cutting, cutting out turtles and getting papers ready for the kids. We have a lot of kids there that we got to work with, and they were fantastic. You can see some of the pictures up there, but the really interesting thing was all the pictures of the snow was after a week of melting. It was really about this high everywhere we went. But the temperature was about 40 degrees, sunshiny, no wind. We were very blessed. It was a great time to be there, to get to see what God had been doing there. And get to experience that. The people there were just incredible. The people of the church there in Fall River, they have kids that walk for miles by themselves with no parents to come to church there because they love being a part of that loving family. They belong there, and it's just, they're doing incredible things, and it was such a joy to be a part of that and see the differences that can be made in people's lives when they come to know Christ and they get to be a part of His body. They have a lot of hard workers there. In Fall River, Massachusetts, the economy's hard, a lot of struggling people, a lot of family problems. Big issue there, people living together, not married. And so that we came across that a lot, and people that we met, people that we had studies with. We studied with a lady, and she just didn't understand why, you know, being intimate with the man that she was living with was a sin. And we studied with another young couple that were living together and had children, or I'm not sure now whether that was their children or one of them had children, but anyway, it was a big issue, you know, talking with people about the importance of, you know, living a godly life. But we We didn't have a whole lot of success with our door knocking. We door knocked a couple days, and I myself, I think, had 3 people come to the door, and we went to many, many doors, and I was thigh deep in snow several times getting to the door, and they've been barricaded in up until the time we got there. Things were just thawing out. So anyway, they were either reluctant to come to the door because they wondered who in the world would be out in this weather coming to the door, or I think really Mike, the preacher there, they're hard workers, and they're out in the community all the time. And so some of them probably knew, who we were affiliated with, but the responses we did have were interesting, very heavy Catholic influence in that area, and that was a lot of what we heard was, no, I'm Catholic, I'm finding my faith. But we did get some opportunities to pray with some people, and just encourage them and told them that, the church is there. If they ever have a need, if they ever, have questions, that they were certainly welcome to come. And so come time for the campaign, we were a little worried. Weren't real sure what the outcome was going to be. I think we had something like 84 people come to the campaign. It was a great turnout. We had a great time. Travis Young and Chuck Wyeth and myself were supposed to be working with a group of kids from Harding, with a bunch of kids from Fall River, Massachusetts. Well, Harding guys didn't come. So we had 3 old guys playing with a bunch of kids, and it was a ball. I really was wondering how the kids were going to take it, but they thoroughly enjoyed it. And you've never seen a more loving bunch of kids. They were so excited to have adult attention, to be able to visit with a grown-up, to sit in their lap and just talk and learn memory verses. And I couldn't get kids to learn memory verses at the church in Fredericksburg, and these kids were just, whatever, let's do it. So it was great time. We did get to see some beautiful things. New England area is just gorgeous. I don't know if you can tell in the pictures, but we got to go to the coast. Gorgeous. We went by Paul Revere's house, but he wasn't there. So we didn't invite him, but we did get to see it. There's a picture, I don't know if it got put on there, but there was, the roads were terrible. They were cobblestone in some areas, but the rest of it was pothole. So it was cobblestone or pothole, that was your choice. But we survived. Mike drove like a race car driver all over the place and got us everywhere. But it was a great campaign. I'm sure they'll do it again. So if you have the opportunity to go with Chris or whoever goes up there, take advantage of it. Thank you.
Ogden, Iowa is a rural farming community just west of the center of the state of Iowa. And as you can see, population of about 2,100. The congregation there was planted in 2001 with 18 people, and at its peak was over 70 in attendance. But due to people moving away from small towns, if you can imagine that happening, they've dropped to 50 or even less. So they were in much need of something. And so that's how the campaign came into being. I'd like to introduce the team just briefly, and then I'm going to let Justin get up and tell about our experiences. Justin, go ahead and stand up. And our photographer that didn't want to be in any of the pictures, Chad, please stand. And Alex Wooten, Casey Cameron, Mariko Irving, and myself. I'm trying to run the slideshow in here. So these guys did great. Everybody in Ogden was very pleased with the work you all did. They wanted me to pass on how much they loved meeting you and working with you. So you all can be seated. So here's just a couple of pictures. We had to do a lot of thinking about what we were going to do, apparently. And so there's Justin and Alex trying to figure out how to campaign. Meanwhile, Chad's out doing it. So without anything further, Justin, tell us about the campaign.
To begin with, I was excited to leave Lubbock for some new scenery. I was excited, to maybe see something a little different. And if you're wondering what the drive looks like from Lubbock to Iowa, imagine you're in Lubbock for 14 hours. So that wasn't really what I was yearning for, but it was a great trip. It was a time of fellowship, a time of getting to know each other even better. But the church there, it was great to come into a place where the people really wanted to work. We had a group of people, a couple families that were fully committed. They were excited. They were scared. I saw myself in it a lot because I saw that same exact hesitation. Because for me, evangelism used to be a word that terrified me to death. Because of the what ifs. Well, what if they ask a question I don't know? What if they're so against what I'm doing that they just want to kick me out? And a lot of those fears were quenched. I saw the look on people's faces as we'd go to door to door, and they would be discouraged occasionally because occasionally you'd get, well, that's not your business, or I'm this, or I'm that. But the people that we got to talk to, the people that genuinely wanted to hear, that genuinely gave us an opportunity to tell them why we're there, was so encouraging to the group that we went with. While we were there, we learned a few things. One of the things, at least in that area, three people at the door is far too many. You knock on the door and the person will come up, and the immediate reaction is, okay, what are you doing here? I see 3 people at my door, and most of us aren't real small people. Some of us have a legitimate we're just large. So, there was some hesitation there, as you could imagine, especially if there wasn't a female presence. But even with a female presence, 3 still seemed like too much. It was very reminiscent to me to back home, Pennsylvania. The idea of I want my own space. And whenever there was 3 people, it just seemed like the wheels were turning in their head because they were asking themselves, okay, what do you want here? What do you want from me? And that was a hard shell to break through. And the only way we could do it is by genuinely caring. And if you weren't genuine, they would see directly through it. The people there are sharp, but the people there are also hurting. I got to learn a bit about the church in Ogden via the community. I got to spend about a half hour speaking with the Methodist minister on his front porch. I got to spend time hearing what the community thinks about the church, which for me was great because I had something to bring back to tell them this is what the community is, this is what they're thinking. Whether this is true or not, this is what they see. And it was a great opportunity for them to do some time of reflection, to think about how they're looking to the community, how they're reaching out, or lack thereof. So it was encouraging to me to see their fervor and their want to change, their want to be that congregation that reaches into the community, the congregation that genuinely wants to serve. We didn't have very many Bible studies. We didn't have very many people bite at the door. We made a few contacts of people that we think genuinely are truth-seeking, but didn't study at the time for one reason or another. But the people in Ogden, Iowa are searching. And more importantly, they're hurting. But like I said, it's reminiscent of back home in Pennsylvania because it's a proud people. It's not easy for them to accept help. It's not easy to say, yes, I want you to help me. So until you can get past that outer shell of the pride, the idea that, I'm all right on my own, it's very difficult. And like I said, the only way that you can do that is by genuinely showing care, letting them know how much you care for them, because they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But like I said, the trip was a great time. It was an encouragement for myself and the rest of the team to see the church there light up as we continued on throughout the week. It was very encouraging to me, and I think we left a great work in Iowa, and I think it's only going to go from now, and it's going to continue to grow because there's some true evangelists in Iowa. All they needed was to be started. So.
Good morning. It's good to be here today. I feel kind of weird to be here since I graduated last year. But it's great to be here. We were here at Sunset in Lubbock, and we did go door knocking every day. I door knocked on the south side of 50th Street between Quaker and Indiana. And I like to use the approach, if the Lord were to come right now, would you know for sure, without a doubt, you go to heaven? And we asked the question to people, but we didn't start with that question. We asked people at the door, do you know anyone we can pray for? And a lot of the time, I was actually surprised that people would actually say yes. Or if we asked them, can we pray with you? Or like they would ask prayers for their family, and we would pray with them on the spot. And at times we would, I went with Brian Bolender, went with Ricky Mendoza, went with Bernice, Bobby Sisson, and Zach Ellis was with me. On the first day, me and Zach actually came to a door, and we asked the person, do you know anyone we can pray for? And he actually invited us into his house. And we actually got to sit down with him and actually go through the gospel presentation. His name is Simon, and I invited him to come here, and I have a contact with him, so I'm going to go back and see how he's doing with that. And also, too, we had a survey, so not too many people were answering the door over on the south side of 50th Street, so I decided that we go over to where Bobby was, over near Avenue Q, and more people were receptive, and one person that Brian talked to actually came out to church. So, and she was actually really excited to learn about the truth. So she said she would come back, so I'm going to try and set up a time to meet with her and go through the gospel presentation. Bobby can tell you about the survey he had.
All right, looks like we're going to go over chapel time maybe a little bit because we want to give time to the next group. But I want to give you some numbers. Yes, you're just going to have to deal with that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take a survey, and it's my belief that, and I'm not trying to be degrading at all, but the poorer a person is, the more likely they're going to respond to the gospel and the good news message. And so I wanted to go to a side of town where there are more lower class, lower to middle class people in that area. Now, we only covered a very, very small section, and the reason is because, and you'll see here in a minute, but we actually got to speak with a lot of these people for a very long period of time. Now, this section that we covered, probably somewhere around 100 to 120 houses were knocked, but only about 35% of those answered the door. And let me give you some numbers here. Out of these 35%, we had 27 people that wanted to fill out the survey that said yes. Out of those, 14 of them said they were married. Many of them had kids. Many of them were single parents. 20 out of those 27 said that they were Christian, but many of those said that they were Catholic. Almost all believed in God and Jesus and said good things about God and Jesus both. So out of 20 out of 27 said they're Christian, only 10 out of 27 actually attend church somewhere. And the reasons for not going to church are no transportation. I just don't. There's nothing for teenage groups. The service is too loud and there's too much going on. And the two biggest are there's too many hypocrites and they didn't feel like they were welcomed or they didn't fit in. Okay? So reasons for going to church: prayer and singing. The church was prayerful. But here's the biggest ones. They're looking for help. They want fellowship. They don't want hypocrites. They want God's word preached. That was a big one. They need a family atmosphere. They need to be welcomed into the group. They want nice people. They want a place where they can have comfort and rest. They want to be able to rest from their problems in the world and not be condemned for them. Okay? The way people are treated is very important to these people. And they want a friendly atmosphere too. In the next section, I tried to ask them some personal questions. We went from, here's some general questions about you. Now let's get personal. So what are some stresses in your life? People said financial stresses. That was the number one. Marriage and life problems. That was number two. Parenting, family issues, addiction was a big one. Being alone, not having a job, not being able to find a job. Dealing with death, and I say this last one for you guys. One person said, I don't get enough sleep. So I figured that you guys could relate to that. One of the questions I asked was, if you could look God in the face, what question would you ask him? Or what questions would you ask him? And one person said, why? Okay, and that was it. One of the main ones I had was, why all the suffering? One person said, why would he choose me to ask him a question? Why aren't my prayers answered in my time? Why aren't my prayers answered my way? Why don't I get what I want when I pray? And when will the suffering end? Okay, when will all my problems go away? Now, also some big ones were, why all the evil in the world? Why do people have to be evil towards each other? And lots of people said that they would ask him, do you forgive me? Only one person out of all these people said that I would praise him instead of asking a question. Now, 17, and here's where it was good, because me and Mike didn't mention all the people that went with us. There was a couple that he left out, and I'm sorry for that if you're here. And is Bernice here? Okay, well, I was going to brag on her a little bit, because me and her went together door to door, and I think 2 is that magical number, and a man and a woman together at the door was great, because it was the second door we went to. There were a couple of people standing outside. We walked up, and they didn't speak any English. Well, I didn't know Bernice spoke Spanish, so she just ripped the survey out of my hand and just starts going to town on it. And I'm like, okay, I'll just stand over here and be quiet. And but it was so uplifting to every one of us that went on that side of town. I mean, we sat down with people in their homes or at their door, and it was amazing to see that when we went to the door, they would have that defensive wall up. I mean, you could just see it. Their arms are crossed, or their attitude was one where they were looking down on us. They were, what's this guy doing here in my door? And some point during that survey, you saw that wall just disappear. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, just to see them go from that persona to smiling and laughing with you, and spilling their guts, spilling their most personal problems with you. My husband's an alcoholic. I just had this person die, and tears coming down their face. Many of them. I mean, they were getting very personal with us. So, out of the 27 that actually did the survey, 17 of them said that they would attend some kind of meeting where they could learn more about God. That was my original intention in making the survey, was to point to something later so that we can go back in this community and reach back out to them. And we're doing that in the next couple of weeks. So 17 out of 27, that's 65% of people said yes. Okay? Now, out of the doors we knocked, we only got 35%. So imagine 65% out of 100 people. That's 65 people that would be willing to go to something. And we're talking like a 4-block radius. Extremely small. So there's people out there that are hurting, looking for a place to go. But what's happening is everyone else is getting them because they're going out and getting them. We're not as a people, okay? And I'm including myself in that. I'll raise my hand as being one of those. These are the topics that people want to know about. Am I right with God? Knowing for sure that I'll make it to heaven. Clearing my conscience. How to get out of addiction. Why are so many bad things happening in my life? They want to know, how do I have a better marriage? How do I raise my kids to be Christians? Being honest with myself. Okay, these are all major topics. In the last section, what we did was we asked people, what can we do for you? Specifically, to do anything physical for them. It was always prayer. It's interesting because if in some physical way, what would that be? Then the answers would have been in with that. We all had a really good time, and there's going to be a follow-up with all those people. So thank you.
For those of us who went to Waco, Texas, if you would please stand up. It was Tom Byer, Jerry Tallman, Luis and Huguette, Cliff Zhu, Charlie Weatherford, Isaac, Bryant Gabrielis, Tom Cote, and myself. And of that group of people, the first day was raining, so we went to 2 places. We went to the library at Baylor University, and we went to the mall there in Waco. At the mall in Waco, from that group, who do you suppose got kicked out of the mall? No. Cliff Zhu. Quiet Cliff gets kicked out of the mall, and that starts our week. We had a good week. Even though it started raining the first day, we had good success. We found a lot of people that were open, people that were, as we've heard from other groups, people that were hurting, that asked us to pray with them for themselves, for family members, for the world, for the leadership of the country. The last couple of days were really gratifying for us and really helpful to us to just motivate us to be evangelistic and to be that gospel force for Jesus. And Luis and Huguette said they wanted to stay in Waco for at least the next 2 years because there were people that they were meeting that they only spoke Spanish. So we could not help them. They could, and they had studies with a couple of folks, and they didn't want to come back to Lubbock. They wanted to stay there. And so there's probably an open door for you there. I don't doubt it. But it was a great week. We had good time, good fellowship, and if you're going to go out door knocking, like was said, having a man and a woman really helps, or if you can bring a child with you. There were 3 boys from that church in Waco that went with us out door knocking. And I'll tell you what, I had more success when I had a boy standing next to me versus another big burly man standing next to me. If they saw 2 guys, they were hiding behind the door. Or if they saw that 11, 12-year-old boy, they'd open the door right, well, come on in, let's pray, And offering the prayer first, that was so good. It's such an icebreaker, and it takes down those barriers, and it lets people open their heart and be willing to talk with you and willing to share and willing to let you then go to that next question and the next question and then open the Bible. We had a good week. There was one lady that was baptized. We had a number of studies. A lot of people asked prayer requests, and we left that congregation with, what do you think, about 100? 46 ongoing Bible studies and close to 100 contacts of people that were interested. So we had a good week. So thank you.